Tonight I'm going to talk to you about building a trading framework with one of the most accurate and the most comprehensive studies that we have yet encountered. So before I get started here, I have to remind you, it is my duty that tonight we're not going to be sending any trades out tonight or recommending anything, right? You guys understand that. Please take everything that we say very seriously. If you treat trading as anything but a serious profession, it's going to be the most expensive entertainment that you can possibly participate in. So who am I? I sound like one of those debate, who am I? Why am I here? That was a long time ago. So if you're old enough to understand that reference, you probably belong here. All right. My name is Doc Severson. I am a male model and a poster child for Rogaine is usually what I tell people. But on the side, I am an options and technical analysis content provider for TheoTrade. I'm also an industry recognized trading educator. There's a lot of people that recognize who I am for some reason, so I've been putting this stuff out and trying to help people for a long, long time. I have been fighting the market for 20 fun years of trading experience. And if you look back over the last 20 years, I'd say we've seen some really interesting times. So just about seen everything here. I have been an options mentor for the past 11 years. I hung up my shingle in 2005 and I'm still doing it, still love doing this, love helping people. I've been working with thinkorswim, so I have 10 years of thinkorswim platform experience by itself, and I'm also the recent author of Hacking the Holy Grail on Amazon. So this is what the book looks like. If you don't have it, check it out. It's cheap, right? So the TheoTrade Team, if you're not familiar with who TheoTrade is and who we are and what we do, this is a great story here. First of all, our co-founder is Don Kaufman. If you don't know Don, it's surprising if you don't know Don. He's been around in these circles for a long, long time and ran the education service at TD Ameritrade for a number of years and ran swim lessons on thinkorswim as well too. So very, very popular educator that we've got on board here, Don Kaufman. Also, another name that many of you are familiar with is one of the most erudite individuals that I've ever met before in my life. Jeff Bierman has been trading for 24 years. Steve Slim Miller. Many of you know Steve from his articles that have been written in Stocks and Commodities magazine and elsewhere. 42 years of experience. Tony Rago is our resident NQ trading guru, has been trading for 23 years. As well as we have the Heisenberg. Nobody's really sure who he is or what his real name is, but he writes some of the most interesting commentary on the market that you're going to read anywhere. Some of the most dynamic content that you're going to find anywhere is in TheoTrade. And believe me, since the beginning of the year, this is, I think we're changing things. So think about this for a second. I think greed is good, free is better. Nobody should be charging you for technical chart studies. You should have gotten a chart study for free just for signing up for this. Okay, we're not selling studies. If somebody's selling you a study, it's because their business is not about making you successful. It's about them selling indicators. So think about that for a second. So here at TheoTrade, we have set out to provide you with the latest, most effective studies with no pitch, no catch, no cost, and save your money for trading. Put it towards something that you can do something with. So tonight, with him, what's in it for me? Why are you here? What are you going to get out of tonight's presentation? So what are these two studies that you've received? We're going to talk about this for a minute. Background on the RSI Legare with the embedded fractal. So it's a long name and it takes a few minutes to explain what we're going to be doing with this, but I want to give you the background on why it is what it is. We're going to be talking about using the RSI Legare Study to develop entry signals. We're going to be talking about trading applications for the RSI Legare Study. I'll show you some recent examples of trades that I've taken. I'm going to show you how to scan for candidates for this, using the study to scan for candidates, and then finally building a trading framework around the study. And then we'll wrap it up tonight with next steps. I hope this takes approximately about an hour of your time. So then after that, you can get back to debate analysis again. Deal? Okay, let's get going here. First, a word about housekeeping, if you don't mind. Housekeeping. Yes, you will get a recording of tonight's session. Yes, you will get a recording of tonight's session. Yes, you will get a share link for the chart study. If you don't have this already, you'll get another share link for this. Yes, you will get a video link that shows you how to import the chart study. That'll probably come out tomorrow with the replay for this. I'm going to be moving very quickly through tonight's session. If you know me, I tend not to bloviate too far. I usually get through material pretty quickly. So we get to everything, and I want to respect your time. I'm not going to be telling you a whole bunch of stories about my past or anything like that. We're just going to be getting right to the meat. So please do me a favor, hold your questions until the end of today's session. If you have something more from a procedural question, we have guys that are on board here that can answer things for you, and be happy to do so. But if you have specifics about how to use it or how to use the study or what to do, or, you know, hey, can you look at this stock? Let's wait until the end of the session today. All right? Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Off we go. I feel kind of like Willy Wonka here. There's so little to do in so much time, right? So what are these two studies? What are the two studies that you guys have already received? And why are we giving you another study? Isn't 400 studies on the thinkorswim platform enough? So is this finally the holy grail that we're providing to you? Well, maybe, maybe not. We'll see. First of all, let's show the projection pivots. I'm not going to spend too much time on the projection pivots. I want to get this out of the way first. The projection pivots are these cool little things that show up on your chart with the dashed lines. And what they are doing is to project, they are forward projecting patterns. And I find that they're actually pretty darn accurate. That does a really nice job of forward projecting trend lines based on price pivots. So I think this can be very valuable in identifying potential lines of support and resistance. So if you use this, what you'll notice is that sometimes it will point out patterns and trend lines and rising wedges and things like that that you may not have noticed before. If you are new to chart patterns, if you're relatively new to charting and technical analysis, this can be a great set of training wheels for you to start seeing these things. So it does take some screen time before you start to spot these things through your eye alone, whether or not they're channels, whether they're rising wedges, things like this, just layers of support and resistance, right? So these are the projection pivots, and my friends, that's all I'm going to say about the projection pivots, because we've got a lot to work to do here on the RSI Legare. Okay, so let's talk about the RSI Legare with embedded fractal energy. Big name. What does it mean? So this is what it looks like on the bottom study here of the chart. So I've just got the RSI Legare with embedded fractal on the bottom section of the chart, and what I'm going to do is kind of pull it apart now. Let's dissect it and understand what it's for and what it does. So the RSI line is represented by the blue line. So let me draw that up here. The blue line here this is the RSI line here, which is going up and down, and it is an oscillator just like any other oscillator. It's going to go up and down. Right, so it's just going to go back and forth between overbought, oversold. So the blue line, with green being the oversold line or the oversold zone, and red being the overbought zone. Okay, no change there, nothing special. so far? So a long signal is going to be shown when we have a hook up. When we hook up from the oversold zone, hooking up above the 0.2 level. Okay, so that's a long signal, hooking up above 0.2, hooking up above 0.2, hooking up. Okay, you got that? So far, so good, hopefully. A short signal is shown when the RSI value hooks down. Hooks down. Hooking down here, hooking down from overbought territory. Okay, you guys with me so far, hopefully? Okay, trying to keep this easy. We're just going to build on top of this. So what's special about this Legare thing? So an RSI Legare, what's the difference between this and a standard RSI Wells Wilder? So most oscillators use a linear time series to compute the value versus price. So many of you are used to using a Wilder RSI, like a period of 14. So that period of 14 is constantly a trailing period of 14. It's linear. It's a linear time series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 14. Okay, nothing special about that. In fact, most indicators use this sort of linear look-back time series to factor in to create the study. So the Legare time transform is dynamic and more adaptive to price movements. It's using the Legare time transform. Now, I tried to do my homework on this. I went back and I Googled it and I said, Legare time transform, and I welcome you to do the same thing. And this is basically what I got was a series of integrals that were on here talking about how the time transform, and I got kind of the bottom line of this is that it is a dynamic time transform. So it's not linear like 1 to 14. It's adaptive. It's going to use a dynamic time transform to calculate the study. Okay, that's all I want to say about that. Maybe it's, we don't necessarily need to know how a car works, but we do know how to use it, right? We don't necessarily want to know what's inside the sausage, but we know that a bratwurst tastes good, right? So when we talk about the RSI Legare with embedded fractal, notice how this RSI signal is very, very binary. Notice how it's very binary. Okay, so it's like, it's going to stay up there and then all of a sudden, wham, it's going to flip over. And it's going to stay up here for a long period of time and then all of a sudden it's going to show a signal. Right, so it's a very binary, it's very responsive. It's very responsive to actual price reversal signals. It is very responsive to price reversal signals, okay? That's the big advantage to the RSI Legare. Now, we haven't talked about the embedded fractal part of it yet. I'm getting there. So what's the deal with this yellow fractal energy line? So some of you have followed me in the past and you understand some of the work that I've done around the fractal energy. And so this is a natural fit to kind of embed this thing into the RSI Legare. And so we'll explain this. And so for those of you that don't know what the fractal energy is, I'll take a couple of minutes here. The fractal energy study gives the linearity of the current trend. Now, what does that mean? Okay. One of the things that I maintain is that really ever since the Fed started playing games with monetary policy, and this is not just the U.S. Fed, but this is worldwide now. Central banks have started to dominate policy. We've started to see the market move in a very different manner. It used to be that we'd see markets kind of oscillate between overbought and oversold, and they'd sort of be range bound, and they'd sort of lazily move around, and we have plenty of opportunity with this. But what we started to see in 2013 was all of a sudden very, very different market movement. We started to see markets rally faster then they would sell off or correct, and rally faster than they would correct, which is completely the opposite of what everybody is taught, is that markets take the stairs up and the window down. So all of a sudden everything got flipped on its side, and nobody knew how to handle that. And we've really seen pretty much the same thing since that point. We really haven't seen too many changes. So we have a different form of market movement than we were used to seeing before, which is kind of, left a lot of technical analysts along the side of the road and not sure what to do. But what I've noticed since this point is that markets still move in one way, and this is range expansion moves to range contraction. And then range contraction leads to range expansion again. And that range expansion can go in either direction. And then that range expansion leads to more range contraction. So we just do oscillate between range expansion and range contraction. So you're going to hear me talk about this in these terms this evening: range expansion, range contraction. Now, again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but if you think through something like this, as option traders, we can take advantage of these states where we see something range expanding, can't we? And we can also take advantage of states where we see something in range contraction, whether or not we're selling some kind of spread, iron condor, calendar spread, time spread, whatever you want to do, right? So there's all kinds of different weapons that we can play against this if we just understand when things are moving and when they're likely to stall, and then when they're likely to move again. And this is kind of the essence of what we're doing here tonight. So a very high value, so now we're going to get specific here. We're going to talk about how this stuff works. If we're looking at the embedded fractal value, which is the yellow line in the center of the chart, a very high value of that means that we have a chart which is basically doing nothing. It's absolutely trendless. And this is akin to winding up the spring tighter and tighter and tighter and building more and more. It's, think about that, like winding a clock up. You're winding that spring and you're getting that tighter and tighter and tighter. And you're building up potential energy in there. And then boom, all of a sudden we see it move. So if we see it move a lot, what we'll see is then that fractal energy indicator actually become very, very low. And that indicates a very, very trending market, right, that's about to exhaust itself and then go into the next state, which is range contraction. So this is the way that we're reading that embedded fractal that's on there. Conversely, a very low value of the fractal study shows that the price has been trending very hard on that chart and is likely to move into consolidation. So range expansion leads to range contraction, which once again leads to range expansion. So you hear me talking about this, it's kind of like, hearing about Dow theory. Higher lows and lower highs lead to higher lows and lower highs and lower lows and lower highs, right? It's the same kind of thing. Range expansion leads to range contraction, which leads to range expansion again. This is the way that markets move, ad infinitum. So the Fractal Energy Study gives us the context of the current price action. The context. Is it trending and exhausted and likely to fade? Or is it wound up like a spring after consolidating and thus ready to trend again? This is what we're seeing. So we're looking at the study with the context first and building up an understanding of what the price is doing, and then we can apply the RSI to it. So let's look at this price chart again and just look at the context with the Fractal Energy Study. So this is the way I want you to use this. This is the way that I want you to use this. Okay, so I'm just looking at a simple chart here, and this is today, of the NQ, which is the NASDAQ futures. This is just a simple chart with the simple prices on here. These are 512 ticks. Each candle means the 512 transactions. It tends to trend a little bit better than time charts, so this is the reason why I'm showing this tonight. So let's think about this again. Remember when I said that the very high value means that we have basically trendless. And let's start looking at when the cash market opens here. So when the cash market opens, we have a high level of energy at this level because of the fact that we have the price basically doing nothing for all these candles in a row. Okay, so this range contraction, what does it do? It leads to range expansion. Okay, no surprise. And then when we get to this level, we have what's called an exhaustion level down here. Exhaustion level means that range expansion leads to range contraction. No surprise. So now it builds up enough energy again, and then we go on another. So it just goes back and forth between these guys. And so here we have range exhaustion down here. Exhaustion leads to range contraction again. So what we want to do is we want to look for these extremes. We want to look for these extremes here, like this and like this, okay? Because we can use something like this. We can understand what the context is of the price, and then we can apply the RSI oscillator to this. You guys with me? All right, let's keep moving along. The embedded fractal study shows you expansion and contraction, but it does not show you direction. So I've been teaching the fractal energy trading methodology now for probably about 5 years. And one of the most difficult things about it is that I teach the range expansion, range contraction thing, right? So I tell people, okay, it's range contraction, it's going to trend again. And they say, well, which way is it going to go? And I say, I don't know. That's why you need to understand price action. Price action, understanding price action, admittedly, is a little bit more difficult for me to teach people and for them to understand that a move to an uptrend is going to be a series of higher highs and higher lows like this. And understanding that change in polarity and how that changes, okay, is not the easiest thing to figure out. It's easy in the rear view mirror, but on the hard right edge where decisions are made, it's not the easiest thing to do. So this has been adding the RSI indicator to the fractal energy component of this has sort of been an answered prayer for this because it makes it simple. It makes it much easier to understand direction. So now that we know the context of the chart, now what we're going to do is add the RSI Legare Study. And for all you French out there, I hope I'm getting that right. We've had much debate within our chat rooms on how specifically to pronounce that. Usually I call it Legare, which is something I don't have anymore. But we'll call it Legare for tonight's session. So here we go again, same chart. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the same signals with this. Okay, so the signals on top of the chart are giving the context or better accuracy. So now let's look at these for a minute. So remember that if we're going to be looking at something like this, like an uptrend, right? So we want to look at pullbacks and things like this where we have, here's an area where we have a high consolidation, getting ready for a breakout. And what do we have down here? There's a long signal. Here's a cross, a hook up to the upside. There's a long signal right there. Okay, so that's one as well too. We have another exhaustion signal down here and then a subsequent long signal after that. So we have a couple of long signals right on here, whether or not they're exhaustion signals or whether the spring is winding up and getting ready to go. The hair jokes are coming already. This is great. I love it. So how do we use this? So let's define one popular setup. So there's actually 6 different setups for the RSI Legare. All I have time to do tonight is just one of them. So let's define one popular setup that you guys can put to use immediately. Pullback exhaustion in the direction of a trend. What on earth is that? Okay, so if you have a trend moving like this, what you're going to do, I mean, this is how markets move, right? They trend and then they pull back or they consolidate in this area. And so what we're looking for is we're looking for a pullback that exhausts itself and is highly likely to reverse. So this is pullback exhaustion in the direction of a trend. So this trend was to the upside on the NQ this morning. On the NQ, this trend was working to the upside this morning, okay? So we would like to go long on a pullback that is exhausted. And again, this is what I recommend that people do, is that don't try to learn everything all at once. It's like if you're a baseball pitcher, don't try to learn a slider and a knuckleball and a changeup and a curveball and a fastball all on the same day. Get really, really good at one thing first off. You know, probably your fastball is going to be something that you're going to need to do. All right, so work on your fastball, get really good with a fastball, then introduce a curve, then maybe a changeup, then maybe a slider, things like that, right? So we don't need to be good at everything. You don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So let's be good at one thing to begin with. So we'd like to be long on a pullback that's exhausted. Where do we start with something like that? Well, let's start with the embedded fractal, because we said that we wanted to look at the context first. And by the way, Stuart, we can use this on whether it's longer time charts, whether it's a daily chart, whether it's an intraday, whether it's a 1 hour chart, anything your heart desires will work with this. So we're going to be looking for something that's exhausted. So where are the exhaustion signals here? So there's one down here. There's an exhaustion signal right as the market opens. Okay. Here's another exhaustion signal that we pointed out before. So here's a couple of ones. Now, why didn't I point out the other ones here? Why didn't I point out these ones over here? Why didn't I point out this one? Well, that's counter trend. Do I want to take a short trade right now with the market heading higher? No, I don't think so. I don't think I want to take a short trade here, which is a counter trend trade. Do I want to take a short trade up here with the market exhausted? Well, it worked, but typically, no, I don't want to do that. So if the market's heading higher, that's what I want to do. I want to go in the direction of the current of the river and not get caught in these little eddy pools that are going backwards, right? So these are the main signals that I want to be looking for here. Exhaustion, oh here, love it. Okay. So now we're going to be using the RSI study to tell us when we're clear to enter. And it's quite simple where the hookups occur. So there's a hookup there. There's a hookup there. This is what we're doing. First of all, understand the context to what's going on in the chart. And then number two, look for the signals. Now, if we did not have a trending day, then we could simply, if we're doing something like this where it's just chopping around the place, whether or not that's intraday or whether it's you found a chart that's kind of stuck in a range, then yeah, you can take every signal. You can take every signal. There's two shorts. Here's a long. Here's another long. Here's a short. You know, you can just take these signals here. But in a trending market, you have to be a little bit more careful about which direction that you're trending in the direction of. So the embedded fractal is helping to filter the signals for us. There are many different combinations for using the FE, or the fractal energy, and the RSI together. This is just one of them. I have to emphasize that. This is just one of the 6 that's out there that we've identified. So now I want to show some examples to this. And look, guys, I'm not going to try to impress you to say, hey, here's a 100 contract trade, or here's a trade that I held for 3 weeks and was worth, a farm or something like that. I'm not going to play that game. That's not how we do things. We're real. So I do want to show you some examples, though. So first of all, we can use this as a directional entry on a daily chart. okay? So here's one where deer, oh, good old deer, fired an alert signal, which I noticed after hours, okay? We're going to get into these alerts in just a minute here. I'll show you how to set those up. So what did we have? We have an exhausted, think about this for a minute. We have a general uptrend, don't we? It's kind of a sloppy range-bound uptrend, but it's an uptrend nonetheless. And we have an exhaustion signal here. We have such a strong pullback that it exhausted itself. And we had a hook up here because it started to hook up, and it's a bullish signal above the 200-day moving average, and so it fired off a signal. And so I went long. Okay, so what did I do? I went long just a simple vertical spread on deer. This is what we call an in-out spread, which is placed right at the money with a defined risk, 61-cent debit, and exited like 2 to 3 days later for 79-cent credit. So am I going to retire on this trade? No, but you do hundreds and hundreds of these, and it adds up, right? This is what we're looking for. You know, limited risk, nice return, good expectancy on this. So after all the commissions were set up, 22% return. Okay, nothing to write home to mom about, but do a few hundred of these and I think you'll see a difference. So we can also be alerted intraday if we have the access. Hey guys, I see a lot of questions out there. What I could do is I could stop and answer every single question for you, but we're going to be here all night, and I don't want to do that. And that generally makes people angry when I stop a presentation and stop to answer every question. So I'd love to answer all your questions at the end of this presentation. That's probably the right time to do that. So if you can hold on there for just a second, I'll get to all your questions in a minute. Okay? I'm moving along as fast as I can, and we'll finish this up in just a few minutes here. So here's an example for an intraday trade. An intraday trade. So this is something where I'm just sitting here and all of a sudden, boom, pop, up comes an alert. Hey, you've got a long signal firing, or in this case, this is a short signal firing. This is ExxonMobil fired an intraday short alert. Now, what made this one a valid short alert? Okay, we have a downtrend, a general downtrend, right? So I want to be looking for selling the rips here. And so we had a strong little rally that exhausted this. So the context here, again, this is just one of the 6 setups that are out there. The context here is that this is an exhaustion and I have a hook down happening here. So boom, hit the alert, and I just, you know, it's kind of funny because, I mean, for as long as I've been doing this, of course, the one thing that you tell people is, well, you never buy puts and calls, never buy puts and calls, never buy puts and calls. Well, I'll tell you what, I looked at the option chain and it didn't make any sense for me to actually set up a spread because this was on expiration day. This was a very short-term trade, and the at-the-money puts were actually so cheap, there was no point in me setting up a spread just to be cool. Well, we have to set up a spread because we're professional traders. No, just buy the put. What's wrong with something like that? All right, and this one was closed in just about an hour and a half. It was about 100 minutes or so I was in this trade. So this was about 126% net return, okay? Very simple little trade based on a little signal firing, okay? Again, $72 is not going to make you retire, but do a few hundred of these and it starts to add up. Do them again and again and again with a positive expectancy, and this is going to get some results. So we can also use these signals as the framework behind futures day trading. So we can use this for daily swings. We can use this intraday. We can also use this for futures, for day trading. So here's an example of an NQ trade. This is the NASDAQ E-minis. And the context here, again, context is what starts off everything, is that we had a chart that was just sitting here going sideways, just going sideways, consolidating in a range with a lot of energy here. So this is actually the second of the 6 setups that we talk about. A lot of energy. Which way is it going to break? I don't know. Let's let the indicator tell us which way it's breaking. All right, so the long signal came in and it worked out nicely for us. Okay, so this was +4 +8 points. So 12 total handles for 2 contracts, $240 gross. Do this again a few hundred times and you're talking real money. So the great thing about this study is they can use this as a basis for an entire framework that you can use regardless of the style of trading that you do. So we just showed 3 examples of directional trades. We could use the same system to increase probabilities for credit spreads or iron condors or time spreads or any other range bound. Remember, range expansion leads to range contraction, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to identify these areas where we expect the price to kind of stall out for either a few days or maybe even a few weeks before it starts to trend again in some direction? Okay, that's what the embedded fractal gives us. Now, what I showed you was a couple of different trades. Some of these came in through the scanner. Some of these came in through the scanner. So how can we harvest opportunities across the market? So we could do it a couple of different ways. I mean, in the old school way is that you used to get a book mailed to you every week with about 3,000 charts in there that you'd have to flip through and look for opportunities for Monday morning. It was a lot of work. That was how my mentor, my chart pattern mentor, taught me how to do this years and years ago. Well, what's nice is that we have these machines that do the work for us. So all we have to do is to be smarter than the machine and tell it what to look for. It's not that hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of Death by PowerPoint here for a minute. I'm going to bring up the thinkorswim platform and see if we can get that going here. Okay, so if you're familiar with this, this is actually the scan tab. So if I was a little smarter, I probably would have gone with a slightly lower resolution on here and blow this up for you guys. But hopefully you can see this. This is the scan tab that's up there. And so what we can do is actually use the study, scan for RSI Legare with Fractal Energy. All right, so we can set up and look for, remember the condition that I was looking for. We were looking for exhaustion on the fractal, and for, in this case, this is going to be a bullish daily example, right? So we can just scan for these opportunities. Now, for even smarter, we can set up a dynamic watch list. So we can set up a watch list over here in the left sidebar, okay? And we can just say, find me bullish examples. And if you actually input a watch list or a scan into a watch list, it becomes a dynamic watch list. What does that mean? What that means is that this watch list will change dynamically during the day, depending on what opportunities either show up, drop off, pop into the list, whatever. And what you can also do is you can set up, and this is a very new feature for thinkorswim that not many people know about, but if you go over here on the scan, so I'm on the very right-hand side of this over here. Okay, see where I'm clicking here, and it says alert when scan changes. Now this is really cool. So you can notify you on when a symbol is added or removed, right, to this particular watch list. You can notify with, you can play a sound, you can send an email to yourself, you can send a text message. During market hours, after market hours, you can send push notifications to mobile devices. So if you've got the thinkorswim client, it'll send a push to you. All right, there's all kinds of things that you can do here. So notify on individual updates, or I'll be honest, if you do this as an hourly scan, so if you set these time frames over here to hourly, you're going to be swamped with the number of signals that you're going to see. you're going to be swamped with the number of signals that you're going to see. There's a lot. Okay, so even on daily, you'd be surprised how many opportunities that there are. So what you can do is you can change this to say, look, every hour just send me a summary of what you got out there. Or you could say every day just send me a summary. Or you could say every week. Maybe you just want to look at this once a week. Look, not everybody has the time to be able to do this all day long. Yeah, and this is what you're doing. You're scanning energy, you're scanning values for that. So that's the way that you set up. That's the way that you set this up. So this is tremendously exciting. I mean, this is something I didn't know about this until I came to TheoTrade. This is the kinds of things that we're exposing to people where you can automate what you're doing. You can actually build a full framework for your trading. So let me wrap up this element of this. Okay, so let's put it all together for a minute. Let's put it all together and let's talk through what we've just done. How can we build a trading framework from this study? How can we take this one study that's got this stuff in there, the embedded fractal and RSI Legare and all this other funny math? How can we build an entire framework for our trading on this? And you've just seen 3 examples where I took intraday trades, I took day trades, I took swing trades on this. So you can use everything from this. So using the RSI Legare study allows us to evaluate the character of the underlying chart to better understand the context of the price. This is that fractal energy embedded part of it, right? And then we can apply this methodology to any strategy at any time frame. So for the swing trades, we can set up automated scans to find daily setups. It just sits there in the background and it spits out trades to you. It's great, okay? Then you can use your noggin to determine, oops, we have earnings coming up tomorrow. Probably not a good time to be entering that trade, right? You can also append to the scan to make sure that you're looking out for things like that in dividends, right? You can be smarter than the scan. So we can also use this for futures day trading if you want to, as well as any option strategy where we're hoping for a pause. This study and fractal framework is extremely versatile. I hope that you guys have gotten a sense for what you can do with this. I hope I've exposed some of the potential that you can use with this framework with just this simple one indicator, right? So everything that we do revolves around what we call a recipe, because we don't believe in just saying, here you go, figure it out. What we do is we break everything down. And this is the one thing I've really enjoyed since I've joined TheoTrade is I've found people that are equally as obsessive as I am about communicating things effectively. So this is why we love specifics. So trading is about answering the what ifs. So what you're going to find is that, and I'm sure some of these questions came in while I was yakking away here. How do I set up this study in my platform? How do I evaluate this study in multiple fractal time frames? What makes a good long signal or a short signal? What makes a more quality signal than the other ones? How do I interpret this fractal energy signal and the context behind it? Okay, I know that you said high and low, but I don't quite understand. How do I do this? How can I create a scan against this study? It's not as easy as it sounds. Other questions like, how can I filter out only the highest liquidity stocks? Or do I have to sort through all the garbage? How can I improve the probabilities on my scan results? Okay, I'm getting too many or I'm getting too few. What types of strategies should I use for these signals? Should I buy long calls only at the money or 0.7 delta? Or should I maybe try something that's got a better expectancy to it, like an in-out spread? How can I notify when my scan produces a result? I saw you do something on there, but I didn't catch what you did. How can I create the same framework that you guys use day in and day out? Well, this is why we're here, folks. We have the answers for this. We have the answers to your trade-related questions. This is what we do for a living. We build recipes with definitive criteria, instructional videos, checklists for every strategy, each unique variable you're going to encounter. And like Bill O'Reilly, we do it live every day in our chat room. Every single day we are on the chat room, anywhere from 4 to 5 hours every day with different individual voices. It's not the same poor guy that's sitting there for 4 hours shouting his voice out, right? We've got different content providers that are on every single day. So this is just the beginning of the many variables that you're going to face when you're going to be setting up this trading framework. This all makes sense tonight because this is what I do. I communicate things. And this all made sense to you tonight. But then once you start to put it together yourself, you're going to go, I don't know what he just did. So the secret is in the sauce. You might be thinking that you can do this, but it's not as easy. You need people's help. The study and the corresponding criteria requires methodology and understanding. We've spent years adapting the fractal methodology to our trading. The secret is our ability to set you up for success to this. So if you'd like the criteria to add the RSI Legare framework to your trading, I've got the answer for you folks. So I've got a class this Saturday. This Saturday, we're going to call it the RSI Unleashed class. It's going to go from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Time. That's 10 to 1 Eastern Time. It's going to be with me, yours truly. The class is going to be recorded, archived immediately, and available indefinitely. All materials are going to be available immediately to you. Okay? This is the cool part here, though. Think about this. It's not just the class. It's also going to be another class that I did recently, Increasing Vertical Spread Probabilities with Technical Analysis. So it's kind of a combination class because we get into the different vertical spread strategies that we use, whether it's in-out spreads or credit spreads. And then, of course, this is kind of my signature. This is really my bread and butter here, which is the fractal energy trading. If you want to know more about understanding fractal timeframes, fractal energy analysis, the context for charts, this is it right there. So I did this in 5 parts. I spent 3.5 hours, and it's all laid out for you. So again, this is a $97 class for this, for all of this information that we're giving to you. $97. So here's the curriculum to this. We're going to be learning about how to add the study and the scans to your workplace. So I know that some of you have had trouble doing this. We're going to walk you through how to do this. I'm going to show you how to create scans and alerts and dynamic watch lists, just like I did tonight. You're going to understand how to evaluate the 6 different conditions of the RSI Legare with embedded fractal study. We're going to be doing advanced filtering, advanced filtering for the scans. So this is where we need to be smart about what we're looking for so we don't get too much noise introduced into the system. We're going to be using fractal timeframes. I'll show you how to use an anchor chart versus a signal chart to understand how to trade with the trend and better filter your opportunities. We're going to be looking at different applications for trading, kind of like what we did tonight, we talked about the daily versus the intraday versus day trading, and show you how to break those up for the RSI Legare. And of course, we're going to be doing examples. We're going to be doing live scans. Let's evaluate what we're looking at. Hey, this is what we're seeing on Saturday. What's going on right now? Okay? Or here's option B for you. So the first one was just the class itself. But if you'd like access to every class that we've ever done and will ever do over the next year, this is what we call Total Theo, okay? This is where some recent classes that we've done have been a risk twist spread. This is an awesome class that Don just did like 2 weeks ago, setting up for the big short. Iron condors, selling premium, managing risk, high probability trading with in-out spreads. If you guys have not had experience with in-out spreads, you've got to do this. If nothing else, you've got to take that class. This was a revelation to me. I've been trading for long enough. I didn't even know about these things. This was an answer I'd been searching for the past 15 years. It was here, okay? TheoTrade should have been available years ago. Covered calls, weekly options, options 101, 201 if you're new to options. Again, also at least 4 hours a day live plus a minimum of one class per month, and that is $9.97. So that's an average of $83 per month for everything. This is like the Netflix of trading education. Everything that we do is available to you at all times, okay? So that is at theotrade.com/RSI. Please pick an option. Either join me this Saturday or go for the full enchilada. Join us at Total Theo and join us for a year and get everything in there. So with that, my friends, I appreciate all your patience and hanging in there, and I'm sure you got a ton of questions, and I will do my best to keep up with everything here. So with that, I'm going to start to answer your questions.